Hey, how's everyone doing? I really need a new headshot, huh? Or at least one with a newer headset. So I'm Diego Medina, Vice President of Advanced Advertising Products at Viacom, focusing on innovation products today, and specifically talking about VR at festivals, and something we learned recently with our Clusterfest activation. I've got a sizzle I'll show. But first, to just kind of set the tone, if you haven't heard of Viacom, we're a large global entertainment media company. We create experiences and content that drives culture and conversation. More and more, we've got these great distinctive brands, and we're looking to activate those. So my group works within advanced advertising. We look to activate these emerging channels and look to match opportunities that really make sense for our brands, whether those brands are Pepsi with MTV, or whether it's just Nickelodeon, or whether it's a Clusterfest festival. These are some of our great things. So what we did this year at Clusterfest, which if you're not familiar with it, I'm going to tell you quite a bit about it. Clusterfest is a 3-day music and comedy festival in San Francisco that Comedy Central puts on with Superfly. It's been going on for 3 years. This year, I think it was like 60,000 people. Don't quote me on that necessarily. But over 3 days, we had a number of music and comedy shows, stand-up, and as part of that, we decided to explore the concept of a VR pop-up arcade, right? Festivals being an interesting way of kind of activating these things. And this is where we saw a lot of success. So I know there's been a lot of talk about enterprise VR and enterprise AR. I think that there's an opportunity within festivals to re-engage entertainment as a way that really makes sense for audiences. One, festivals themselves they're already creating the desire to engage in spectacle, right? You go with friends want experiences, right? I made a joke yesterday where I said, you can broadcast to the future through the power of memory. That's what we're looking to do within festivals. And VR itself should be transparent within this festival. No one cares about the technology, right? When you go to a concert and you look up, do you wonder about the lights? Do you wonder about the speakers? It doesn't mean anything. So what we did was really kind of lean into what would a comedy festival VR activation look like, right? And that's kind of the first piece of it, which is how do you define and have an idea that isn't simply looking to match some version of reality? So I'm sure we've all had experiences when we begin to have creative conversations with people, and when you say, hey, let's do a VR thing. And of course, someone within comedy is going to think, cool, stand-up simulator. That's a very difficult thing to pull off, right? I imagine some of us right now are just thinking about how do you even operationalize that, right? What does that experience look like? What's the actual user flow? So there's that initial creative education period where you want to break the creative people free from the notions that VR needs to be a version of reality. VR has got the ability to be more than reality, right? That's the whole thing, and that's why within an entertainment layer, the creatives can really bring these things to life. So I think the next one's a sizzle. Are we all ready for a sizzle? All right. Cool. Oh, thank you. So what we saw there, I want to point out a couple things, right? VR for festivals is about that spectacle. It's about your friend getting up on stage, right? It's a karaoke thing. It's getting pulled up on stage by the magician, by the comedian. Maybe not everyone's going to do it. But you're there with friends. Whoever does sit down, we put up 3 large watchable stations, and you can see your friend's face in VR as they're sitting there. So as you're walking through a festival, right, someone's like, hey, I want to do this. Did you do the VR yet? They've got the opportunity to participate simply in watching you be up there, right? And when you went as a group, you want to have these shared moments. Beyond that, actually putting their face and personalizing within there, that's a lot of the fun of the entire thing, right? I got to be honest with you, the only people who asked me what tech we were using happened to work in our industry, right? No one else wondered about it. And the other thing that came up as part of that is the realization that 70% of the folks who sat down for the VR experience at the festival had never had a high fidelity virtual reality experience, right? Years ago, someone had them at best like a Gear or something. And so they were actually remarkably taken aback by the quality of it, the tracking of it, right? So I guess that makes sense. So to kind of talk about what we learned, we want to establish the guidelines, and this is the nature of thinking, what is the actual experience going to be? So we wanted to think about, one, we want a viewable, quick 2-minute experience, onboard people rapidly, right, with the idea that it's going to generate a social shareable and create a little bit of a spectacle. Beyond that, we know that we're not really going to be able to call a lot of attention to it necessarily because people are there for music and for comedy. Ultimately, this is a nice thing to be having there. So knowing that, ultimately we're an add-on to create a good spatial experience surrounding the creative aspects of what is like a really comprehensively creative festival, and that's knowing the crowd too, right? So. It's not just the actual consumer of the person wearing the headset. It's the actual creative. It's the individual you're engaging to help ideate in the thing to begin with, right? The crowd is two people. The crowd is the first filter that you have to pass through so that they think of VR. The second crowd is going to be who's actually putting on the headset. And I think we've all experienced this, having to sell VR, having to sell AR, having to sell extended reality like 4 or 5 different times to 6 different people. And in the end, you want to make sure that at the end of the day, you're still keeping the final audience in mind, which is the person wearing the headset, right? And no matter what, at the end of the day, 2.5-minute experience like in a festival on the ground where a piñata's pooping candy on you and you have to fight it off with a lightsaber, what crowd at a music festival that decided to show up for fun that day isn't going to participate, right? And then we get into the enterprise thinking. And of course, we're a large organization, so my concern there was, hey, this is recreatable. Right? We've got a social shareable thing, VR pop-up arcade. We're throwing and activating our brands, experiences, and festivals all over the place. This is a thing we can recreate. And the moment you see creatives begin to sit down and they actually tried it out, they were like, oh, okay, cool, this is interesting. I didn't realize I could really do whatever. And more than that the feasibility and the actual quality of the execution that's available now, considering all the workflow tools that we're seeing here, like it makes it so much easier. And I think that while there's been a huge resurgence within enterprise thinking, that entertainment's going to come surging back because these tools, these workflows, these efficiencies that we've worked so hard to generate are going to be put in front of the right folks, and creatives are going to start experiencing this thing, And I'm really excited to see what that looks like because, selfishly, I just want more cool VR experiences, and I think we're all here for that same reason. So that's my time. I'd love to talk about anything you all think could be meaningful for any one of our brands or any one of our festivals. Come talk to me about what you think could be done, right? We're trying to put cool experiences in front of people, and we've got great IP and brands that really serve up the creative opportunities in a way that like only an actual entertainment brand could. Come find me and let's talk.